The day the interview results came out, I stumbled upon a Reddit post just how powerful is the impact of an unattainable high school crush. The top voted answer had just been posted. Here is my story. He had a crush on me in high school, and I ran into him while job hunting recently. Even if I'm less skilled than others, he'd still make me the luckiest one. The photo shows their prom picture from when they were 18. The girl wore a white evening gown, her slender figure appearing quiet and demure. The boy tilted his head as he gazed intently at her, his profile clean cut and familiar. Her phone vibrated slightly. It was the rejection email for her job interview. It suddenly dawned on me she was Ethan's first love, the one who destroyed my future. I told myself to look forward and never turn back. I allowed my love life to be a mess, but my career, my freedom, and my life, none of these could afford any mistakes. One of the replies below instantly exploded. Seriously, using your position to get relatives' jobs is bad enough, but now you're giving your high school crush special treatment. Go ahead and keep talking, sis, otherwise I'm afraid the righteous netizens won't be able to dox you properly. If you're old enough to pull strings for someone's job, shouldn't you be married by now? Is this Opie just using the white moonlight excuse to be a homewrecker? Another shameless mistress. What do homewreckers come in white moonlight and cinnabar mole varieties now? The Opie wasn't anxious at all. In fact, she seemed rather pleased with herself. I know you losers are poor and ugly, can't even pay your bills in real life, so you have to come online and type away. I'm just lucky even as a divorced single mom someone still treats me like a princess. Go ahead and be jealous. He.S. throwing me a celebration party after work later. The latest reply from 2 minutes ago. I opened my phone. Ethan is my pinned contact. Just 2 hours ago, he told me he had a dinner gathering with high school classmates tonight. Ethan still shares his real-time location with me. As always, come find me anytime if you need anything. For the past 5 years, he has always proactively kept me informed, whether working overtime, attending business dinners, or sudden work trips. Even if it was just a few simple words, it was enough to put my mind at ease. So much, so that I never once thought to see how he behaved around others. But today I suddenly felt like going to see for myself. The blizzard outside had intensified, and the highway was a glaring sea of red taillights, as far as the eye could see. That steakhouse wasn't too hard to find. It was right near the lab. Perhaps because of the weather, there weren't many diners. I quickly located their private room. Inside, the conversation was in full swing. Now among our group, Ethan is the most successful. Fiona's matter wasn't trivial, yet you see how effortlessly he handled it. Back then you said he was just book smart, but look now, I've heard how highly regarded Ethan is at their company. It's nothing, just a small favor. Ethan's voice was casual, as if commenting on the weather. My treat today, order whatever you like. The group launched into another round of effusive praise. You really don't have to worry anymore, Fiona, to put it bluntly. With Ethan watching your back, no one would dare say anything, even if you didn't show up for work. The girl called Fiona snorted coldly. The way you say it makes it sound like I'm completely dependent on Ethan. I've thoroughly researched this position. I only applied because I'm fully qualified. Fully qualified. This is one of the top labs in the Bay Area. In previous years, they wouldn't even consider anyone without a PhD from Bayview University. What's your academic background? Fiona's selection this time strictly followed the standard hiring process. Ethan slightly raised his voice effortlessly, helping Fiona out of an awkward situation. But buddy, aren't you afraid your better half will find out and get mad? The speaker was his college roommate, the only person present who was somewhat familiar with me. Ethan's voice suddenly turned cold. What's there to make a fuss about just helping out an old classmate? Besides, we're about to get married. Even if she doesn't work, I can support her. The crowd chimed in agreement, though whether sincerely or not was unclear. To be honest, marrying you is the greatest luck she could ever have. If it were me, I'd make sure my man was pampered at home. Who'd go looking for trouble? Fiona, tell me, didn't you misjudge back then? If you'd said yes to Ethan, you'd be living the good life now. A well-known secret, yet it suddenly hushed the private dining room. What's there to complain about when someone is taking care of you? I really envy her now. If it weren't for Lily, who do you want to be a corporate slave like me? Fiona's voice sounded muffled, tinged with a hint of grievance. I heard that girl ISNT local. Did your parents agree? This he refers to Ethan. Yeah. The speaker clearly didn't want to continue discussing this matter. Ethan, I'm just asking before your wedding if I. Ethan instinctively cut off what she was about to say. There aren't so many what-ifs in this world. Right now, I'm her only support in the city, and she comes from a broken family. Girls who grow up in that kind of environment, you wouldn't understand. I tightened my down jacket around me. Even though the hallway heating was stiflingly strong, I couldn't stop trembling. In that instant, I didn't want to say anything at all. My heart suddenly felt hollow, emotion stuck in my throat. Unable to spit it out or swallow it down. It's nauseating. So this is how Ethan talks about my private matters to others, as if they're jokes. To think he'd describe me as so shamelessly clingy, to belittle me as utterly worthless. I wandered aimlessly through the streets, my face stinging with pain. Even though I knew the fault wasn't mine, I couldn't stop the tears from falling. Every insignificant moment from these past 5 years is replaying in my mind one by one. Ethan was 5 years older than me. He returned to our university as an outstanding alumnus to give a speech during my first year of graduate school. Upon learning he worked at the lab I'd always dreamed of joining, I immediately scanned the QR code on the screen to add his contact information. At first, I just wanted to stay updated on the latest job opportunities. Whether by chance or necessity, we kept running into each other at public events. Sometimes it was at a professor's lecture, other times at academic conferences. Back and forth our interactions grew increasingly frequent. True to his reputation, he was composed and rational, his striking appearance being the least remarkable of his qualities. When I was going crazy over complex data in the lab, he happened to finish a school event and suddenly decided to visit this farthest laboratory building from the school gate. When I was having a dispute with the next table while dining out with my roommate, he and his friends coincidentally were in the shop next door and effortlessly helped us out. When I was alone at the hospital for a checkup clutching ambiguous test results, too afraid to approach the doctor, he appeared from the end of the corridor backlit by the light. On Christmas Eve, he asked me out for dinner and confessed his feelings to me with effortless naturalness. I felt like I'd been struck by luck standing there in a daze. He took a slight step back, maintaining a distance that made me feel completely safe. It's okay. If you refuse, your wishes matter most. Whenever you're ready to date, just tell me, I'll be standing right here closest to you, going nowhere else. I quickly shook my head, then realizing something was off, immediately nodded instead. After we got together, even pulling all-nighters in the lab felt enjoyable, because there'd always be his endless chatter on the other end of the phone. Chloe, I ordered seafood congee for you. Remember to drink it while it's hot. Chloe, you silly little thing, your thesis data is clearly missing a decimal point. Chloe, don't work yourself too hard, it pains me to see you like this. He would kiss me with such tenderness, whispering I love you in my ear every time we parted. He wasn't as composed as when we first met. He'd even get jealous if I glanced at opposing players during games he participated in. He made me discover a better version of myself during the most mediocre and hopeless times. Yet all these seemingly beautiful memories instantly took on a hue of suspicion. My phone suddenly began to vibrate. It was my graduate school senior. She was also involved in this lab recruitment. Chloe, did you and Ethan have a fight? I lowered my eyes, trying my best to remain calm. No, what's wrong? The senior clearly hesitated for a moment before stammering. Our school has always had a 100 acceptance rate. In previous years, it's practically an unwritten rule. This year, the other two candidates got accepted, only you. But the girl who was accepted, though she technically met the hiring requirements, her resume and interview performance were clearly inferior to yours. It's only me, so I was the only one who didn't get accepted. Yet to get into Bayview Lab, I'd been preparing since high school. Through hellish studying like an ordinary person, I stood out in that grueling academic battle and completed my bachelor's, master's, and PhD at Bayview University. Just today, I was supposed to realize my dream. But Ethan actually had the audacity to use my decade-long efforts to pave the way for his white moonlight-esque life. 3 after returning home, I sank into the sofa scrolling through Fiona's social media posts one by one. She loves answering questions online, and she always adds an edit before her responses. How are you doing now, after marrying early? Edit. My family background is quite good, upper middle class. At least in the first 30 years of my life, I turned down many suitors, including some truly exceptional ones. I met my ex-husband abroad. He was on his second marriage. While it was my first, his circumstances were far superior to mine, and his family was very pleased with me, considering me pure and untainted. That's why I was willing to suspend my studies to have a child for him. After the divorce, I've been doing just fine. That marriage helped me see two people clearly. My ex-husband had his Snow White hidden in his heart, while I had my loyal knight. Neither of us lost in the end. A loyal knight for her. I curled my lips into a wry smile and continued scrolling. If you could turn back time, which year would you return to? Editor, note, probably the year he confessed his feelings to me in high school. Given another chance, I'd definitely say yes. I spent 5 years abroad and have been back for nearly 2 months now. The day he returned from his business trip, we ran into each other at the airport. He helped me find an apartment and even arranged schooling for my child. He took care of me while I was hospitalized and even helped shuttle my kids back and forth. Last month, after I was discharged, when I said I wanted to go to church, he immediately accompanied me to the mountaintop chapel in the suburbs without hesitation. It was raining that day, and the mountain road was treacherous, yet I felt completely at peace. Countless details flashed through my mind like a revolving lantern, each one falling perfectly into place. I pressed my hand against my chest, feeling a sharp pain seeping through the gaps between my ribs. It only rained for 1 day last month, the very day I was rear-ended while driving my advisor's car to pick up materials. The other driver was furious, slamming his hands against my window the moment he got out of his car. I immediately called Ethan, but all I got in response was one busy signal after another. The rain grew heavier when the police arrived, so heavy that even umbrellas couldn't hold up against it. I stood by the roadside, drenched in the downpour, my teeth chattering uncontrollably from the cold. Eventually, Ethan finally answered my call, his voice hushed as he told me he was busy and would call me back later. At that moment, I thought I heard faint church bells ringing in the distance and wondered if I was hallucinating. While I stood trembling in the rain, he was devoutly kneeling before God, praying only for the well-being of his unattainable first love. The latest Q&A, do you believe broken mirrors can be mended? Editor note, working on it. He now choosing to stay with his current partner out of a sense of responsibility. So I don't consider myself the other woman. When a man's love wavers between two women, the later arrival is the true interloper. And I was clearly the first to arrive, and I could feel all his love directed at me. Right after dinner, he called an Uber to take me home, and the car still had my favorite jasmine-scented air freshener. He had too much to drink and suddenly looked at me saying, "It can only be but B could be anyone." I pretended not to understand because I knew I was I planned to buy 2 bottles of wine and have a heart-to-heart talk with him all night, just talking really. All our high school classmates know his current girlfriend is just a bookworm who relies on him for support. Compared to a woman like that, I think it's only right for me to be more confident. Who knows, maybe after talking he'll abandon his sense of duty and choose true love. Perhaps it was the effect of the white moonlight post, but this particular update had an unusually high number of comments. I really want to call the police. This helpless feeling of not being able to reach through the screen is killing me. Who is be save my heart. The backdoor girl's confidence is through the roof. Fine, that be for me. I need to tell her loudly. And that poor soul whose position she took, make sure they're notified too. What kind of grudge is this in this lifetime? She is stealing both jobs and partners. If I keep seeing posts like this, my stock funds are going to skyrocket. How unfortunate. The unlucky one is me. Be that also me. I realized with absolute clarity. It wasn't that Ethan suddenly stopped loving me. It was that Ethan had never loved me at all. Because in his heart lived someone he'd yearned for but couldn't have in his youth. And I'd always been pitted against an illusory shadow in this competition. For as 11 o'clock approached, Ethan sent me a text. Did the interview results come out yet? I stared at those words on my phone screen, suddenly feeling both furious and amused. He had practically single-handedly overseen this recruitment process, even suggesting during the final selection phase to prioritize researchers with overseas study experience. And now he was putting on this act in front of me. He outsmarted himself this time. Did he really take me for a fool? I forwarded him the rejection email from the interview. Within 3 seconds, I received a long string of replies from him. It's okay, this is quite normal. The lab standards have become stricter recently. Just focus on preparing your graduation thesis. Ask me if there's anything you don't understand. Don't rush to find a job. I'll help you. I'll be back late tonight. You should rest well, and don't overthink things. As expected, Ethan didn't come home that night. The next day, I went to discuss revisions to my thesis with my doctoral advisor. As usual, before we finished, he invited me to join a dinner gathering with some friends. Oh, by the way, it happens to be people from Bayview Labs. Let us ask why they rejected you. We should at least know why we lost, right? I was about to refuse, but the words took a turn at the last moment. All right. This was my first time meeting Fiona. She wore a simple white dress, her jet black long hair tied into a low bun revealing a slender fair neck. She looked gentle and poised. The one who organized the gathering was a senior who had already graduated. There was a project in the lab that he was responsible for, and he wanted to seek some advice from my advisor later. This is Fiona, the new member assigned to our project. She just returned from overseas, so I thought I'd introduce her to you. He gave Fiona a satisfied glance and lowered his voice to continue. This one was specifically reserved by our junior Ethan. He'll be here shortly. We do appreciate your guidance for the newcomer. Hello, Professor Miller. I'm Ethan's high school classmate. Fiona raised her glass filled with red wine and said, since I don't have much hands-on experience, I've been fortunate to receive leniency from Ethan and the others. I look forward to learning more from you. She spoke words of humble seeking for advice, yet between the lines, every phrase hinted that she was someone with connections capable of pulling strings. Whether she genuinely wanted guidance from my advisor or hoped he would turn a blind eye during the project, I think everyone understood perfectly well. My advisor slightly furrowed his brows, glanced at her, then at me. Then he calmly set his utensils on the table. So that's how it is. No wonder you even turned down a PhD from Bayview University. The words had barely left my mouth when the sound of a door opening suddenly reached my ears. It was Ethan. Having known him for so many years, I'd hardly ever seen him lose his composure. He always appeared calm and courteous in any situation, but now he stood frozen at the doorway for a full 5 seconds. His hand even unconsciously tightened around the doorknob. Chloe. Ethan's face was tense and his voice trembled slightly. The corners of my lips lifted as I smiled at him. What are you that happy to see me? You two know each other. The senior had no idea about my relationship with Ethan. In the end, this was all my fault back then. Ethan was so outstanding. I didn't want others to think every success of mine was because of him. Of course, the current Ethan isn't bad either. Otherwise, how could he have so thoroughly blocked the path I wanted to take? I didn't speak, just turned my head and quietly looked at Ethan. He froze again, his expression somewhat unnatural. This is my girlfriend. Fiona's face suddenly changed, then the corners of her lips curled slightly, as if in provocation. She poured herself another glass of wine. So you're Ethan's girlfriend? Well then, this toast is for you. Two will inevitably need to help each other out in the same workplace from now on, so let me thank you in advance. I raised my glass slightly and smiled. No need to thank me. After all, I didn't voluntarily give up that job offer. Fiona's wine glass jerked violently, instantly staining her white dress with red wine. Ethan's hand, which had just been about to pull out a chair, froze midair. The private dining room fell silent. Instantly, no one ended up eating a bite of that meal. The advisor immediately announced his withdrawal from the project collaboration and demanded his name be removed from the supervisor section, threatening to report them for academic fraud otherwise. Without touching a single dish, he took me and left straight away. When I got home, Ethan had already been waiting for me in the living room for quite some time. This little apartment looks exactly the same as before, still my dream of a home for two with 3 meals a day through 4 seasons. Yet somehow, everything feels different. Without a word, I walked into the room by myself. Believe it or not, Fiona's entry into our company followed all the proper procedures. Don't think I had any power to interfere. Do you know why I insisted on pursuing my PhD? I cut him off directly, and it was you who told me that although your recruitment ads have always stated a Master's degree is sufficient, those actually hired all held PhDs. Then why is a 1-year Master's degree acceptable now? Ethan froze for a moment, surprised that I even knew Fiona's educational background in such detail. Undergraduate and Master's degrees from the US, studying for 9 years in total. I got married, had children, and divorced in between. He fell silent for a few seconds before patiently explaining to me, since our recruitment requirements already specify a Master's degree, there's a possibility of admission. You all have genuine skills, but this year the company insists on bringing in some fresh blood to create different sparks. A single system of knowledge can hardly bring innovation anymore. Whose decision was this? What do you mean, whose decision? This was obviously a collective management decision. Perhaps realizing how harsh his tone had become, he tried to take my hand. Very few people know about our relationship, which actually makes this hiring process more objective and fair. Chloe, there's always someone better out there. You need to learn to accept that. I curled my lips into a half smile and looked at him mockingly. Then how about the fact that everyone knows you and Fiona were high school classmates? Do you think that had any influence on the hiring results? Chloe, Ethan's face darkened abruptly as he said displeasedly, you grew up in a single-parent household too. Why can't you show some understanding for Fiona's situation? You know how much malice this society holds toward women. She's alone with a child. What do you expect her to do? I stared at him in confusion, momentarily at a loss for words to express my disbelief. So society has malice toward divorced women with children, but none toward unmarried childless women like me, is that it? He opened his mouth, then seemed to relent helplessly. You're different. I'll marry you. We're about to get married. Even if you don't earn money, I'll support you. Fiona is struggling to raise the child alone. You know what, the other day I ran into her at the airport dragging a suitcase, while holding the child looking completely lost. It reminded me of when you talked about your childhood, and I just couldn't bear it. I curled my lips slightly, staring at him expressionlessly. Can I trust you? Ethan gripped my hand firmly, enunciating each word deliberately. I have never lied to you, not once. But this statement was a lie. I packed a few clothes and prepared to stay at my school dormitory for a few days. The reason was simple and sufficient. Graduation season was quite busy, and I also wanted to carefully reconsider things before the engagement. Half a month passed, and Ethan would come to the school without fail to have meals with me during every mealtime. Occasionally, he would even bring homemade soup he had prepared at home. He would bring me fresh clothes on weekends and accompany me in the library as I pored over various research materials. I stopped deliberately hiding our relationship, and the school's confession wall page was soon filled with our love story straight out of a romantic drama. It reached a point where it seemed we'd have to get married just to give this fairy tale a proper ending. And that's when my phone finally started receiving messages from a certain someone. On the first day, a photo of him delivering soup to me at my dorm entrance was posted on the confession wall. You don't actually think he loves you, do you? Didn't you find that soup way too bland? I replied the seasoning was adjusted to my taste. As long as I liked it, that's all that matters. I hope you can stay this naive forever and never discover anything. I took a deep breath and calmly typed out a line, don't worry, he has always protected me well. The next day, the confession wall featured a photo of him and me gazing affectionately at each other in the cafeteria. It must be hard for him to take Lily to kindergarten every day. I heard he passes by your school anyway, so he can grab breakfast there, killing two birds with one stone. I curled my lips slightly. We're getting engaged in a few days. Once we have our own child, will he still have time to accompany someone else's kid? You want to get married. I've given him everything you couldn't. Suppressing my disgust, I pretended not to understand. We love each other. Marriage is only natural. On the third day, the campus confession wall featured a photo of us walking side by side at sunset, fingers tightly interlaced. Let me be honest, I got into this lab because Ethan arranged it, meeting the standards. Those standards were set specifically for me. I deliberately didn't reply. What's wrong? You actually believe whatever new knowledge system collision your dear fiancé told you about? I don't understand any of it. He leaked the interview questions to me. I took the spot that was meant for you. I didn't speak, just kept recording the screen. We've had 5 years together. Why should I believe you? Stop trying to drive a wedge between us. This time she directly sent me screenshots of their conversation. It was exactly what I wanted. 7 days before the job posting was announced, Ethan had mentioned the lab position to her. Fiona hesitated ambiguously before finally voicing her concerns with great caution. The acceptance rate was too low, her qualifications didn't meet the requirements, and she completely lacked the necessary skills. Ethan brimmed with confidence, declaring he would take care of the matter himself. What man who has achieved some success wouldn't he want to show off before the unattainable crush who wouldn't he even glance his way back in the day? On the final evening before the application deadline, Ethan helped her revise her resume. Fiona sent a heart-eyed emoji praising him as a magician. The resume he polished looked like it had been gilded. Ethan remained characteristically modest, explaining that resumes naturally require some embellishment and that Fiona was just too honest and naive. Yet I remember clearly that day when he told me he had urgent business at the company and asked me to take a taxi back from school alone. Because of the sudden snowfall and the school's remote location, I had to walk for over 20 minutes before I could hail a taxi. By the time I got in the car, I was so cold that my lips had turned blue. The driver quickly turned up the heat a few more degrees. When I got home, he was sitting in front of the computer in the study, as if he hadn't stepped out all day. When he saw me, there was still a trace of lingering joy in the corners of his eyes that he hadn't had time to hide. Every day after that, Ethan helped her prepare for the interview down to the smallest details of what to say first and what to say next. All I wanted was for him to walk me through the interview process, but he refused. He told me he didn't have time, and as one of the interviewers for this recruitment, it would compromise fairness and impartiality. At the time, I felt embarrassed, thinking I'd made some shameful request without realizing it. On the day the interview ended, Ethan breathed a sigh of relief for Fiona. He immediately sent her a message praising her for doing an excellent job. Fiona even subtly asked him if she had taken someone else's spot, because according to what she heard from the interviewers, 3 PhD graduates from Bayview University had applied for the position this year, while the others were just there to make up the numbers. Ethan dismissed it, thinking being eliminated must have been due to lack of ability. Fiona was overjoyed and immediately invited him out to dinner. But unexpectedly, Ethan refused. The reason for his refusal was probably only known to me. Because he was going to propose to me after obtaining the chat records. I didn't wait for Ethan to pick me up, but went home by myself. By the time Ethan got home, I had already ordered a full table of takeout. I used our joint bank account. He walked in carrying a luxury brand bag, saw the spread of food on the table and me on the couch, his face breaking into a contented smile. The company gave out year-end bonuses a couple days ago. This is that bag you've been eyeing for ages, but couldn't bring yourself to buy. I watched him quietly, just like how ID looked at that bag back then. Ethan has many virtues: intelligent, handsome, meticulous, and diligent. His academic achievements far surpass his age, yet he never grows arrogant or slack in his work. But his flaws are just as numerous and far more fatal. For instance, he is perpetually haunted by people and events from his past, leading him to make mistakes that should have been avoided. This bag is also expensive, small, and exquisite, satisfying a woman's vanity. But my bag always carries a laptop and various documents. I hardly ever consider bags with small capacity. No matter how many advantages they have, I would give them up. What a coincidence, it can be my onboarding gift. His fork froze mid-air as he looked at me with confusion. A job acceptance gift. I took a sip of my drink and smiled, raising my phone. Yes, I've already received an offer from Northgate Research Institute. Ethan and I locked eyes for 3 seconds before he suddenly seemed to realize something. Are you still mad at me about the Fiona incident? Northgate Institute only accepts Northgate University graduates. It's just like Bayview Research Institute. Which friend of yours forged this acceptance letter for you? I really haven't been following Northgate Lab's recruitment this year. Why didn't you pay attention? Because I was too busy focusing on Fiona. This year, Northgate Laboratory broke its long-standing tradition. For the first time, students from any school could now apply. All applicants must take written and oral exams with admission granted based on top-down ranking of scores. Perhaps due to changes in recruitment rules, their job posting was announced unusually late. It just happened to be on the day the Bayview Lab interview results came out. I opened the offer and made sure he could see it clearly. It does have my name on it. This year, the recruitment requirements at Northgate Lab have changed, just like yours. Ethan suddenly stood up, frantically pulling out his phone to check Northgate Lab's recruitment notice and the final admission list. My name was listed second. He wore an expression of disbelief. How could you go to Northgate Lab? Do you know what this means for my work? How could you join our competitor's lab? I set my phone aside and said casually, what's wrong with someone like me who got rejected by Bayview Lab, going to another lab? What threat could I possibly pose? One thing is true though, since I'm joining Northgate Lab, my advisor there does have some interest in collaborating with their lab. When the time comes, we'll break down the institutional barriers and choose the best partnerships. Ethan's face looked worse than if he'd eaten shit, trying to maintain his composure. He said, that's not what I meant, Chloe, we're about to get married. You could see anything on my computer anytime. Things could get complicated. Frowning in displeasure, I raised my voice. What are you saying, Ethan? In your eyes, am I both academically incompetent and morally questionable? I didn't mean it that way, Chloe. You can still apply to our lab. Next year, you'll definitely get in. I glanced at the bowl of boiled fish from my favorite restaurant, already gone cold. Now it just smelled fishy and greasy. How could people be so disgusting, wanting to have their cake and eat it too? So why was I rejected this year? Was it to make room for Fiona? From what I know of him, he wouldn't admit it unless confronted with hard evidence. I switched on the projector on the table. When we bought it, ID imagined us cuddling on the living room sofa during rainy days, sharing our favorite films together. Now it's only used to play back chat logs and surveillance footage. On the day the interview results came out, I suddenly got the impulse to install surveillance cameras at home. This came in handy. Ethan's eyes widened so much that he even dropped his phone on the table. The sticky sauce covered the entire phone, making it utterly unappealing to pick up. When it showed him and Fiona embracing passionately, he couldn't take it anymore. It took several attempts to turn off the projector. He hung his head, his words carrying an accusatory tone. You actually installed surveillance at home. 9. I let out a soft sigh. Even now, this was what concerned him the most. How can I know if you're lying to me without installing surveillance? That day, I asked you, can I trust you? How did you answer me? No, Chloe, I know with your abilities you could succeed anywhere. I just thought Fiona needed this job more than you did. Her family went bankrupt. She's divorced with a child. This job is her lifeline. I did have personal motives. Among the 3 Bayview University students, you were ranked first, but if we eliminated the others, they'd definitely raise objections. Even though I'd known the truth all along, hearing these words come from Ethan's mouth still made my eyes sting. So you just used me as sacrificial lamb, I scoffed, taking 2 steps back. Ethan, how could my life mean so little to you? You talk about how Fiona's child like me comes from a single-parent family and needs your understanding, yet you casually destroy my future, ruthlessly erasing all my years of hard work just like that. Ethan pressed his lips tightly together. Chloe, didn't you have someone you liked when you were 18 too? I looked at him expressionlessly. If I said I liked them, that means it's in the past. What nonsense about how the things we couldn't have in our youth will haunt us for life. What is she doing there, standing in the line of sight of everything that belongs to me? What makes her forever the champion of your youth, effortlessly surpassing everyone else? These are just men's excuses. If you truly loved her so much, how could you have married someone else? If you truly loved her back, then why didn't you fight with all your might to pursue her? Has over a decade passed, and yet you still feel trapped at 18. Ethan looked at me with reddened eyes, his voice choked with emotion. We're about to get married. Can't you forget these things for the sake of our upcoming marriage? Wait until next year. Next year I'll definitely get you into our lab. I couldn't help but laugh, and as I laughed I caught sight of the ring on Ethan's finger. So that night after the interview, when you built all those snowmen downstairs at 3 a.m. and proposed to me with a ring, was it out of guilt? You felt guilty because you'd wronged me, so you rushed to compensate me with something else. But the engagement ring was bought last minute. It didn't even fit me properly. Back then, I was too overwhelmed with joy to notice. I thought we were heading toward a happy ending that I'd graduate with both love and career success. That's why I strung the ill-fitting ring onto a necklace without suspicion and wore it around my neck. Now it lies quietly in my hand. Ethan, we're over. Here's your engagement ring back. Fiona has a larger frame than me. It LL fit her much better. Ethan jerked his head up, eyes wide with refusal. No, she's divorced. That's unacceptable. He forced the ring back into my hand. Chloe, after all these years together, we've become family. Our bond is stronger than romance. I cut him off, so that left the position of love vacant. You didn't want to marry her thinking that without commitment, you could keep the passion burning forever, is that it? I casually tossed the ring onto the table. This ring may be cheaper than the gold bracelet you bought for Fiona, but it still costs money. Make sure you keep it safe. Ethan was completely panicked. Chloe, listen to me. I know I acted without thinking this time. I didn't ask for your consent beforehand. Next time, I'll definitely discuss it with you first. I dragged my suitcase out, my voice calm and indifferent. There won't be a next time, Ethan. If you're not going to make me your first choice, then don't choose me at all. 10 the next day, I posted all the chat records Fiona sent me and my recordings with Ethan online. A daughter raised by a single mother has many strengths. For example, she learns early on to defend her own interests through her own efforts. At first, I struggled with the lack of evidence. Fiona's admission process appeared perfectly reasonable on the surface. Even if I raised objections, they were unlikely to change the admission outcome based solely on my few words. On the contrary, they would choose to let me take the loss to protect the lab's reputation. So I could only let them expose themselves. Coincidentally, Fiona's favorite thing was to show off, and she couldn't stand seeing my relationship with Ethan grow stronger day by day. Provoking her was easier than provoking a grasshopper, but I never expected the people from Bayview Lab to fan the flames. A request from the lab typically needed to be addressed within 1 to 3 days. The specialized division of labor required everyone to independently complete their assigned tasks. But Fiona could barely do anything and frequently sneaked out of the company. Sometimes she went to pick up her child from school. Other times she claimed to feel unwell and needed to go home early to rest. The progress was repeatedly delayed, and the discussion had now directly extended to the flaws in the management of Bayview Labs. Even my former mentor couldn't resist opening a social media account. This is one of my most diligent students who has practically made the lab their home these past few years, excelling in both research and results. I hope this matter will be resolved fairly. 2 hours later, Bayview Laboratory issued a statement announcing a formal investigation into the matter. 2 days later, Bayview Laboratory officially released the investigation results. Fiona was dismissed due to incompetence, and I was given the opportunity to be rehired. This outcome only fueled greater dissatisfaction among more people, including me. That guy managed to disappear perfectly again, didn't he? He investigate the head of this lab seriously, suspect there are issues with their personal conduct. Another slap on the wrist punishment. Hot most. The guy above just got a whiff of the wine, sent the woman had no job at the start, and still has none in the end, while the guy just stays put like nothing ever happened. How is this so similar to a post I saw before? Oh, it's the one about the white moonlight. I remember that too. It's the outrageously confident moonlight sister. They really do resemble those two. Why are they only dealing with one when both are at fault? Do they take us for fools? Exactly. Fiona has her issues, but doesn't Ethan have his own problems too? It's just Bayview Lab trying to protect him. ID already blocked Ethan's number, so he came to find me at school. She got fired as you wished. Are you satisfied now? I was somewhat taken aback. What am I satisfied about? He looked at me coldly. It just about wanting to go to Bayview Labs. It just about wanting to stay by my side. Why are you still pretending? Chloe, women as rational as you can sometimes be truly terrifying. Let us put an end to this matter. You forget my momentary weakness, and I'll forget your scheming. Let us start over. I frowned slightly. I understood every word he said, but when strung together, I couldn't comprehend his meaning at all. How did I become the one at fault before I could speak? The senior, who had an appointment with the advisor that day, happened to come out of the office building. He walked straight toward me as if he didn't see Ethan. Junior, I hope you'll reconsider if you go to the Northgate lab. I really don't know how to explain it when I go back. I shook my head and smiled. No need to reconsider. I've already made my reasons very clear to you, senior. Ethan stood frozen in place, his gaze shifting from hesitation to shock. What do you mean you're not considering it anymore? You're not coming to our lab. Actually, I wasn't the only one giving up on Bayview Lab. Take the senior, for example. He has been circling around this office building for several days now. Several professors in a row had rejected his project invitation, unwilling to even lend their names as nominal participants. Some claimed health issues, while others said they weren't worthy of the honor. Though related to the current public sentiment, this was enough to put some pressure on Bayview Labs. Without another glance at Ethan, I walked past him toward the tree-lined avenue. The end of this road is where I've spent most of my time these past few years, and where I've witnessed myself step by step realizing my dreams. Half a month later, I signed a contract with Northgate Laboratory. Several professors in succession began shifting their collaborative projects to Northgate Laboratory. In recent years, Northgate Laboratory has gradually broken free from the constraints of Northgate University, showing strong potential to become the top laboratory in the state. The researchers were all carefully selected, no longer limited to just Bayman University, and the research funding has been increasing year by year. The online outcry against Ethan grew louder, manipulating hiring criteria for his childhood crush, embellishing resumes, leaking interview questions. Each accusation struck a nerve with today's workforce. On graduation day, good news finally arrived via her phone. Ethan was also fired. What could have been resolved with a simple termination had now, after being amplified by all sides, become common knowledge. Bayview Lab's reputation plummeted, and Ethan became thoroughly infamous. No reputable lab would ever hire him again. Rumor has it that Fiona personally picked him up on his last day, bringing along their just-dismissed child. A colleague vividly described the scene in the break room. That guy's expression was priceless. LOL, the little girl kept calling him daddy until his face turned black with embarrassment. OMG, this is the legendary painless fatherhood experience. Someone take this deal quick. Accepting everything will only ruin you. Listen to me, folks. Just keep swiping through short videos. Fall in love with 8 people in 10 seconds. You won't even have time to get heartbroken. A few days later, I was sent to Europe for an exchange program, and by the time I returned, a whole year had passed. In the 3rd month of my stay in Europe, I heard that Ethan had been beaten to the brink of death, nearly losing his life. It turned out Fiona's divorce from her ex-husband hadn't been properly settled at all. Just as Ethan agreed to accompany her to her daughter's school parent-child event, her ex-husband showed up in the flesh. The little girl, having witnessed her real father's violent tendencies, before hid behind Ethan in terror, crying, "Daddy, save me." Ethan didn't even have time to react before taking several kicks to the body. The other parents had long since shielded their children and moved aside while Fiona clutched her daughter, trembling and weeping uncontrollably. Compared to Fiona's ex-husband, Ethan possessed neither strength nor skill. He was beaten so badly, he lost control of his bladder on the spot. The video spread like wildfire across the internet, impossible to delete fast enough. When friends came to visit him, Ethan sat quietly on the hospital bed with a numb expression. Whenever someone called his name, a trace of bewilderment flickered in his eyes. Later, someone suggested letting Fiona come see him. Perhaps she could lift his spirits. But when Fiona limped into Ethan's hospital room, he scrambled under the bed, as if he'd seen a ghost. Everyone marvels at the unpredictability of life. So much for the so-called white moonlight. 12. Just as I was about to leave, I suddenly received an email. Frowning, I was about to open the attachment when I suddenly recognized the familiar email address. The next second, I deleted and blocked the sender in one swift motion. The person who sent it meant nothing to me, so naturally the content wasn't worth reading either. The day I returned home happened to coincide with another graduation season. To my surprise, all the graduates who intended to stay in the lab this year had applied to the Northgate laboratory. Just 2 hours ago, he told me he had a dinner gathering with high school classmates tonight. When I heard those 3 words again, I no longer felt much of anything. It was like something that had accompanied me for a long time. One day it disappeared, and I gradually got used to it. After work that day, I made plans with a colleague to go shopping at the mall. 1 second ago, I was laughing heartily at a colleague's remark. The next second, I looked up and suddenly felt someone's gaze on me. My face still wore a smile as I glanced sideways with just the corner of my eye. It was him. Ethan stood there alone, looking much thinner than before. The scorching summer still found her clad in long sleeves and pants, her hair disheveled. That spirited young man who once walked toward me in the sunlight was truly gone. I didn't stop walking the moment we passed each other. His gaze remained fixed on me. Only when I was far away did he finally look away. That day, my colleague and I had bought many things. Beautiful jewelry, fragrant perfumes, perfectly fitted dresses. Every mirror in the mall sparkled brilliantly. And the reflection of me in those mirrors sparkled too. 2 years later, when I was invited back to my alma mater for a lecture, someone asked me how I balance studies and relationships. I answered almost without hesitation, I allow my love life to be a complete mess. But my future, my freedom, my life, none of it can afford to go wrong. From that moment on, I vowed to live only for myself, charging forward without hesitation. The end.